I accidentally fell for my husband's best friend. I still remember that night, the night that shattered everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and my own identity. The finality in his voice, the tremor in my heart, and the scent of regret mingled in the air as the storm raged outside. It began with 3 haunting lines that I replay over and over in my mind. "I can't keep pretending," he whispered, his voice breaking like fragile glass. "I don't know how it happened," I murmured under my breath, frozen as guilt and desire intertwined. "We're standing on the edge of everything we've ever built." That night, everything collapsed. The unraveling of an ordinary world. For 17 years, I believed my life was as stable as the oak tree in our backyard, a living testament to resilience and security. I was married to Daniel, the man who had been my rock since college, and together we had built a family life filled with comforting routines, shared dreams, and mutual understanding. Or so I thought. In the gentle hum of everyday existence, emotions simmered beneath the surface, waiting for a catalyst to release their pent-up fury. I had never doubted Daniel's loyalty. His calm presence and steady love were all I had ever known. Yet, as in every human life, shadows lingered in unexpected corners. It was in one of those unassuming, overcast afternoons that fate intervened. My husband's best friend, Mark, had always been a cheerful enigma, a burst of spontaneity that contrasted sharply with Daniel's quiet reliability. Mark's magnetic allure was something I dismissed as a harmless trait of his extroverted personality, until one rainy evening changed everything. The spark of forbidden attraction. It happened during one of our many small, accidental encounters. I had been preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. Daniel had left early for a meeting, leaving me alone with the familiar clatter of cutlery and simmering stew. I opened the door to find Mark standing there with an umbrella dripping onto the steps. His eyes, dark and earnest, locked onto mine, and for a moment I felt an electric charge, a spark that ignited an inner turmoil I never expected. "Hey, I hope I'm not intruding," Mark said, his tone husky with an emotion I couldn't decipher immediately. "Daniel mentioned you might need a hand with dinner tonight." His offer was innocent enough, yet the intensity in his gaze sent ripples through my carefully curated world. As he stepped in, the room seemed to shrink. Every tick of the clock resounded like a countdown to an uncertain destiny. His presence was both a comfort and a threat, and I felt my heart begin to race, caught between gratitude and a burgeoning, forbidden curiosity. That evening, as Mark helped me chop vegetables and stir the bubbling stew, I became acutely aware of every subtle movement, each casual brush of his hand against mine, each shared laugh that lingered just a moment too long. Our conversation oscillated between light-hearted banter and moments of unspoken intensity. Beneath the surface, I began to sense that he, too, was wrestling with feelings far deeper than camaraderie. Our interactions unfolded like a slow-burning fuse, a dangerous attraction that neither of us fully acknowledged until it was too late. Confessions in the darkness. Nights turned into weeks, and the meetings that began as platonic evenings gradually grew laden with tension and emotional missteps. I knew that every secret glance and furtive touch was a betrayal not only of Daniel, but also of the vows I'd taken with a trembling heart so many years ago. I was torn between two worlds, one defined by responsibility and the other by an overwhelming sense of desire I could neither control nor fully understand. One particularly cold winter night, when the wind howled against the window panes, I found myself alone with Mark in the quiet intimacy of our living room. Daniel was away on a business trip, and for a brief, terrifying moment, the confines of our marital home felt like an arena where forbidden passions could be unleashed. The silence between us was charged with anticipation until Mark's voice broke the stillness. "Julia," he began, his tone laced with a vulnerability I had never witnessed before. "I have to tell you something that's been eating at me for months." I looked at him, my heart pounding wildly, knowing that every word he uttered threatened to dismantle the moral order I had always depended on. "What is it, Mark?" I whispered, my voice trembling as I braced myself for what was coming. He took a long, shuddering breath. I fell in love with you, a love I never planned, yet it grew in the space between your smile and every word you spoke. I fought it. I tried to ignore it, but it's there. I'm in too deep, and I can't keep it hidden anymore. In that instant, the room became a crucible for our shared guilt and the wreckage of shattered loyalty. I felt as if the ground beneath me was giving way, and the walls of my carefully constructed life were crumbling. Mark's admission was not just a declaration of forbidden love. It was an irrevocable fracture in the foundation of everything I held dear. Torn between love and loyalty, the ensuing days were a whirlwind of confusion and inner conflict. Every interaction with Daniel and Mark was now tainted by secrets and unspoken emotions. I became a ghost in my own life, wandering through days filled with relentless internal debates. I was split in two, one part of me clinging desperately to the life I had always known, and another part lured irresistibly towards the warm, dangerous glow of passion that Mark ignited within me. It wasn't simply a matter of physical attraction. It was a profound emotional entanglement that complicated everything. I began questioning my own identity. Was I merely a wife living a safe, predictable life, or was there a passionate soul yearning for connection, even if it meant risking everything I loved? Late at night, when the weight of silence pressed on me, I would lie awake, wrestling with guilt and desire. My thoughts darted between memories of our happy times with Daniel, quiet dinners, shared laughter, and the life we had built, and the intoxicating, illicit energy that Mark brought into my life. In these solitary moments, I found myself negotiating with my heart, desperately pleading for a way to reconcile my conflicting emotions. The escalation of emotional tension. As the tension grew, so did our clandestine meetings. Mark and I began to seek each other out in the most unexpected places. A chance encounter in a quiet cafe, lingering looks in crowded hallways, and stolen minutes during social gatherings. Each rendezvous felt like a step deeper into an abyss from which I feared there would be no escape. One such meeting occurred on a rainy afternoon in late spring. I had arranged to meet Mark at a small park that lay just outside the city. The rain fell in heavy sheets, disguising the tears that my soul cried as I awaited him under the skeletal remains of a once grand oak tree. His arrival was silent, but charged with the energy of unsaid apologies and desperate confessions. "Julia," he said softly, stepping into the watery gloom. "I know this is madness, but I can't pretend that I haven't known you were more than just a friend, that my feelings were something real, something transformative." We stood there, the rain drenching us, as if nature itself was trying to wash away our sins. I struggled to find my voice amid the roaring storm. "Mark," I replied, my tone wavering, "I'm terrified of where this is taking us, yet I can't help feeling that maybe this is who I truly am." His eyes searched mine as though seeking forgiveness for the betrayal that he knew would follow. "I never meant to hurt you or destroy your world, but I can't deny what my heart tells me," he said, his voice raw and pained. The irony wasn't lost on me. We were both prisoners of emotions that defied reason, bound by an invisible thread of illicit longing. Yet, with every confession, every meeting, we were inching closer to a precipice. My mind was a battleground where the right and the wrong were in constant conflict. I felt trapped in a labyrinth of my own making, where every turn led to another moral quandary. Every whispered secret a step toward inevitable destruction. Dialogues that laid bare our souls. In the midst of our tumult, there were moments when dialogue became our only sanctuary from the encroaching chaos. One quiet evening, as we sat together on the back porch beneath a sky awash with twilight, Mark and I indulged in a conversation that would forever define the trajectory of our lives. "Julia, have you ever wondered why we're here?" he asked, his gaze fixed on the horizon where day melted into night. I took a deep breath, studying the embers of our fading light. I think I always knew that something was missing in my life, a part of me waiting to be awakened. But I never realized how deeply the void ran until now. He nodded solemnly. It's not just about passion or desire. It's about feeling truly seen, challenging the norms that confine us, daring to live authentically, even if it defies societal expectations. Our conversation meandered through memories and regrets, hopes and fears. With every exchanged word, the walls between us crumbled further. But the more we talked, the heavier the weight of impending guilt became. I was not just betraying Daniel. I was betraying myself, my identity that had been so tightly interwoven with the ideals of duty and honor. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just seeking an escape from the responsibilities that define me. I confess softly, eyes brimming with the realization of my inner turmoil. Mark, I love him, I truly do, but something in me feels like a stranger in my own skin. Mark's expression softened, a tender empathy in his eyes. We're all searching for something, Julia. Maybe we lost ourselves along the way, and now we're just trying to reclaim what we thought was lost. That night, as the stars began to reclaim the sky, I felt a fragile hope emerge amid the wreckage of my divided heart. But I also knew that every step towards this reawakening was cloaked in the bitter taste of inevitable loss. The unforgiving nature of secrets. The more entwined our lives became, the more the fabric of secrecy started to fray. Every hidden message, every covert glance across a crowded room, carried the constant threat of discovery. My days were filled with an acutely heightened sense of awareness, a perpetual state of vigilance that drained the joy from even the simplest moments. I remember one particular day when Daniel returned home unexpectedly from an extended business trip. I had meticulously hidden every trace of our clandestine encounters, but the look in his eyes as he casually touched something on the desk, a note written in Mark's familiar handwriting, sent a shiver down my spine. My heart pounded, each beat a reminder of the moral precipice upon which I teetered. "Julia, have you seen this?" Daniel asked, holding the note gently as though it were made of fragile glass. His voice was a mixture of confusion and quiet hurt, and in that moment, the weight of my duplicity pressed down on me with unbearable force. I opened my mouth to speak, to deny, to retreat back into the comfort of fabricated truths, but no words came. The silence stretched between us, a chasm of unspoken betrayal that neither of us could bridge. Daniel's eyes, so full of trust and pain, bore into me, and I knew there was no simple way to undo the damage that had already been done. That night, as Daniel slept fitfully beside me, I lay awake, tormented by the realization that the secret I held was not only a betrayal of his trust, but of my own integrity. The echoes of that moment reverberated in my mind, an endless loop of regret and despair. The inner battle, guilt versus desire. In the weeks that followed, a visceral struggle engulfed my soul. Every time I looked at Daniel, I saw not the man I had married, but a reflection of the guilt that now defined me. At the same time, every glance from Mark reignited the embers of forbidden longing that had taken root within me. I found myself torn between two divergent paths, a path of duty and one of passionate self-discovery. Each morning I would wake with a heavy heart, the burden of my secret weighing me down as I navigated the day-to-day life that now felt like a series of masks. My internal monologue became a battlefield. I must be strong. I have responsibilities. How can I allow this love to destroy what we've built? Yet, how can I deny the truth of my heart? It feels so real, so all-encompassing, a part of me I've always suppressed. My mind oscillated between scenes of tender intimacy with Mark and the solemn, stifling security of my marriage with Daniel. In the depth of the night, I replayed every moment of complicity, every stolen kiss, and every brief, lingering touch. The emotions were confusing and overwhelming, each memory a puzzle piece in the complex mosaic of who I was becoming. One autumn evening, I visited the quiet sanctuary of our favorite lakeside park, seeking solitude to confront my conflicted emotions. The crisp air and muted light offered a rare opportunity for self-reflection. As I sat on a weathered bench overlooking the placid water, I allowed my thoughts to spill freely. I am not the woman Daniel married. I'm not the one who dutifully fulfills every expectation. I am a mosaic of shattered dreams and secret desires, pieced together by moments of passion and regret. But can I ever reclaim the innocence I once knew? Or has it been irreversibly tainted by choices made in the shadows? In that moment, the lake became a mirror to my soul, a silent observer to the countless nights of internal strife. I knew that if I did not confront this inner turmoil, I risked losing myself entirely. Yet, the more I searched for truth, the further I drifted from the safe harbor of a life built on mutual respect and trust. A pivotal confrontation. As the seasons shifted towards winter, so too did the dynamics of our tangled relationships. The delicate equilibrium we had maintained began to shatter as the truth, like a dormant volcano, threatened to erupt. It was during a family gathering, a festive celebration meant to unite us in a shared joy, that the carefully guarded secrets started to unravel. Daniel, always perceptive yet unassuming, noticed the palpable tension in the air. Midway through the evening, as we sat around the table in the warm glow of candlelight and soft music, he asked, "Julia, is everything really all right? You seem distant lately. I can't help but feel that something is off." His words were gentle, yet the underlying concern struck a chord deep within me. The chatter around the table hushed for a moment as eyes met mine, searching for the truth. I felt the weight of every secret, every lie, and every stolen moment. The vulnerability in Daniel's expression, the man who had given me his trust, was almost unbearable. I don't know, I stammered, trying to gather my thoughts. I've been conflicted, perhaps overthinking some things. But the facade of indifference was crumbling rapidly. Later that night, in the dim isolation of our bedroom, Daniel confronted me privately. "Julia, please," he pleaded, his voice thick with worry. "Tell me what's happening. I need to understand." The sincerity in his eyes forced me into a corner where truth and deception collided. I hesitated, feeling the swirling tide of emotions threatening to spill over. "Daniel, there's something you should know." I began haltingly, each word feeling like a betrayal. I haven't been true to myself or to you. I've been hiding a part of who I really am." His confusion turned into hurt, and for a moment, the person I knew seemed to vanish behind the veil of our shattered life. "What do you mean, Julia?" he demanded softly, the tremor in his voice betraying his inner pain. Tears welled in my eyes as I confessed. "I've allowed myself to fall for someone else, a very dear friend who means more to me than I ever expected. And I know now that this love is both beautiful and ruinous. I never meant for it to happen, but it has, and I don't know how to stop it." The silence that followed was deafening, a silence that spoke of lost dreams and the inevitable fracture of trust. Daniel's eyes filled with a mixture of anguish and disbelief, and his voice cracked as he responded. "Who? Julia? Who have you been seeing?" The question pierced the fragile barrier between us, and with a heart full of sorrow and trembling regret, I whispered, "It's Mark." The aftermath: fractured lives and shattered illusions. In the days that ensued, the home we had built together fell into a state of disarray. Daniel's once steady hands trembled with the effort of trying to understand the betrayal, while I felt every ounce of my soul disintegrating under the weight of remorse. It was a period marked by painful silences, heavy stares, and conversations that barely scratched the surface of our emotional turmoil. Mark, too, was thrown into this maelstrom of consequences. His own guilt was palpable, and he tried desperately to reach out to me amidst the ruins. One chilly evening, as I sat by the window watching the falling snow, each flake a fragile remnant of what was lost, Mark appeared at the door. His eyes were red-rimmed from sleepless nights, and his face bore the unmistakable signs of inner torment. "Julia, I'm so sorry," he said quietly, stepping inside as if he were trespassing on a sacred space of regret. "I never intended to cause this pain. I thought I thought what we had was worth fighting for, but now I realize that our choices have consequences beyond what we ever anticipated. The conversation that followed was a raw, honest exchange between two souls caught in the crossfire of passion and duty. I never wanted to hurt Daniel. I pleaded, my voice trembling with unshed tears. But every time I saw you, it was like I glimpsed a version of myself I had long forgotten, a version that is free, authentic, and yearning for something more than the confines of our expectations. Mark's eyes shone with empathetic sorrow as he replied, I understand that pain, Julia, more than you know. But love, no matter how pure it feels, can be a dangerous thing when it defies the bonds that tie us to each other. In that moment, the stark reality of our situation confronted us both. There was no simple solution, no magic formula to mend a broken trust or reclaim lost innocence. We were left with the bitter taste of guilt and the overwhelming grief of decisions that had irrevocably altered the course of our lives. The descent into emotional isolation. For months, our home transformed into a battlefield of raw emotions. The quotidian life we once cherished was now a minefield where every shared memory was laced with regret. Daniel attempted to salvage the remnants of our marriage, yet the crack in our foundation proved too wide to bridge without deep scars. The echoes of our failures haunted every corner, quiet sighs in the night, the distant sound of shattered dreams, and I felt increasingly isolated within the confines of my own guilt. I sought solace in introspection, turning to long walks, journals filled with desperate attempts at catharsis, and moments of solitude near the lake where my inner conflicts were laid bare before nature's indifferent splendor. In these moments of isolation, I questioned not only the ethics of my choices, but also the very essence of my identity. Am I truly responsible for my actions? I pondered during one especially long night, the silence around me offering no answers other than the relentless ticking of the clock. Or is my heart merely a victim of circumstance, pushed into a corner by a desire that was both unexpected and overwhelming? These questions became my constant companions, haunting me as I tried to piece together a semblance of order from the chaos of emotions. I began to realize that my betrayal was not just an act of disloyalty toward Daniel, but a profound crisis of identity, a challenge to the version of myself I had meticulously constructed over the years. The inescapable truth of our choices. There came a moment, an emotional nadir, when it became painfully clear that our lives had reached a crossroads from which there was no return. One evening, as the wind howled through our desolate living room and the unrelenting chill of winter seeped into our bones, Daniel confronted me with a final ultimatum. His eyes, once warm and trusting, were now filled with a stark resolve that left no room for negotiation. Julia, I can't keep living like this, Daniel said, his voice steady but laden with sorrow. I'm tired of pretending that everything is okay. I'm tired of the lies and the secrets that poison every moment. I need answers, I need change, and if that means letting you go, then I have no choice. His words reverberated through me, each syllable a reminder of the love we once shared and the trust that had now been shattered into irreparable fragments. In that moment, I realized that love, in its purest form, demands both honesty and sacrifice. And if honoring that love meant facing unbearable truths, then perhaps the time for denial had finally passed. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered, I'm so sorry, Daniel. I never meant for this to hurt you. I never meant to lose myself. Yet, even as I spoke those words, I recognized that apologies were empty without the courage to change. The lives we led were irreversibly altered, and the future was shrouded in uncertainty, a future where every choice carried the heavy burden of consequences. A temporary respite in the midst of chaos. In the immediate aftermath of that harrowing confrontation, a tentative calm settled over our fractured household. Daniel moved out, temporarily seeking refuge with a distant friend, while I confronted the full spectrum of my emotions in the silence of our once shared home. The physical distance was at least a small balm for the ache inside, a chance for both of us to breathe away from the chaos of intertwined betrayals. During this period of separation, I turned inward, wrestling with the duality of my desire and my duty. I began therapy, a desperate bid to unearth the origins of the emotional scars that had led me down this path. In the quiet, sterile room of a counselor's office, I was forced to confront the uncomfortable truths about my own self-worth, the subtle neglect of my inner needs, and the societal expectations that had dulled the vibrancy of my spirit. My sessions revealed layers of pain, early disappointments, unfulfilled dreams, and the quiet resignation of a woman who had long sacrificed her true self for the sake of stability. It was a painful process, and each revelation was a reminder of all that had been lost. Yet in that pain, there was also a spark of redemption, a chance to rebuild from the ruins of my past and rediscover a self that was authentic and raw. It was during one of these sessions that I realized that the turmoil I experienced was not solely due to my infidelity. It was, in part, a symptom of a life lived in quiet submission to expectations that were never truly my own. The betrayal, therefore, was twofold. It was not just against Daniel, but against a life that I had allowed others to define for me. The inevitable confrontation with ourselves. Time, however, has a curious way of both healing and exposing the wounds we try to hide. As winter thawed into a reluctant spring, Daniel and I arranged to meet one last time, to see if any semblance of trust could be salvaged or whether we must part ways forever. The meeting was fraught with tension, the air charged with all the words we had left unsaid over the past months. Daniel arrived first, his face drawn and heavy with the burden of decisions past. We met in a quiet cafe, chosen for its neutrality, a place where time seemed to slow, if only for a little while. The conversation began hesitantly, each of us treading carefully around the painful topics that lay between us. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Daniel began, his voice subdued yet resolute, "about everything that happened and what it means for the future. I can't ignore the betrayal, Julia, but I also can't deny the years we shared. There's so much history between us." I nodded, feeling the sting of his words. "I know, Daniel. I carry that history with me every day, along with the guilt and regret of my choices. I've spent so much time trying to understand why I did what I did, both to you and to myself. The dialogue that unfolded was raw and unvarnished, filled with declarations of sorrow, moments of anger, and glimmers of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could learn from this devastation. We spoke of responsibilities, of societal pressures, and of the yearning for a love that was both liberating and destructive. Yet, in the end, we both understood that no neat resolution could erase the moral complexity of our actions. Daniel's parting words were heavy with finality. "I think we both need to find a way to forgive ourselves for what's happened, and maybe someday forgive each other. But I can't keep holding on to a love that was built on secrets." His farewell was a bittersweet symphony, a mixture of sorrow, acceptance, and the unspoken acknowledgement that sometimes the hardest battles fought are the ones within our own hearts. The road to redemption and reflection. After that final meeting, Daniel and I embarked on separate paths, each of us tasked with the arduous work of healing. My life, once a quiet narrative of predictable routines, was now an intricate tapestry of mistakes, regrets, and the slow, painful emergence of self-awareness. I began to write, journals filled with reflections, poetry that captured the intricacies of my emotional warfare, and letters that I would never send, addressing the deepest parts of my soul. Mark, too, distanced himself, perhaps understanding that his own life required reflection and atonement. Our sporadic conversations, once filled with unspoken promises and passionate confessions, gradually dwindled into bittersweet memories of a time when we both believed that our love could conquer everything, even if it meant breaking the rules that bound us. As the months turned into years, I came to realize that redemption was not found in the absence of guilt, but in the honest confrontation with one's own moral failures. I began volunteering at a local community center, sharing my experiences with others who felt overwhelmed by the forces of life. In these moments of vulnerability, I discovered that our mistakes did not define us. Rather, they could become the impetus for growth, understanding, and ultimately forgiveness. There were still days when the old memories would surge forth like tidal waves, threatening to drown me in regret. The scars of betrayal remained, etched deeply into my consciousness. But with each day that passed, I learned to accept that my heart was complex, a fragile, wounded thing that had loved fiercely and, in its defiance, had tasted both the ecstasy of forbidden desire and the agony of betrayal. A legacy of lessons and unanswered questions. Now, as I sit quietly in the twilight of my own reflection, I am left with more questions than answers. The love that led me astray, Mark's love, remains a bittersweet phantom that occasionally reappears in my dreams. Daniel's presence, once a pillar of certainty, is now a faded yet indelible mark on my life. I find myself wondering, can forgiveness ever truly erase the wounds that our choices inflict on others? Can a heart, so deeply fractured by conflicting desires, ever find a path to redemption? Every conversation with myself is a dialogue of opposites, of the woman who lived by society's dictates and the woman who dared to feel so intensely that she risked everything. I have learned that love is not a simple equation of right and wrong. It is a multifaceted force that demands sacrifice, acceptance, and the courage to confront one's innermost demons. There are moments when, as dusk settles and the first stars emerge, I think back to that explosive night, the moment of confessions and the irreversible choices made in the heat of passion. I realize that while I may never fully atone for the betrayals committed, I must embrace the entirety of who I am. A woman who loved against the odds, who made choices that defied expectations, and who continues to live with the consequences of that tumultuous journey. In the end, my story is not one of neat resolutions or happy endings. It is a reflection of the messy, often painful truth of human existence, a truth that challenges us to continually balance between the calls of duty and the allure of desire. I have learned that in our mistakes lie the seeds of growth, and that redemption, however elusive, is a path we must all navigate with honesty, empathy, and the unwavering commitment to transform our deepest regrets into lessons for the future. Epilogue: the cost of love and the search for forgiveness. As I write these final words, I am acutely aware of the indelible impact that love and betrayal can have on a life. The journey through guilt, desire, and introspection has reshaped me in ways I am only beginning to understand. I have come to cherish moments of solitude, where I can reflect on the lessons learned through years of emotional torment and triumphant moments of clarity. I often revisit the memories of our time together, the clandestine meetings, the heated confessions, and the final bittersweet farewell. They remind me that while our choices may lead to irreparable ruptures, they also offer a glimpse into the raw, unfiltered truth of who we are. There is beauty in our imperfections and in the reckless abandon of a heart that dares to love beyond boundaries. Now, as the seasons change and life continues its relentless march, I find solace in the knowledge that every scar is a testament to a battle fought, a lesson learned, and the unyielding resolve to reclaim one's identity. Although I will always carry the weight of regret for the pain I caused Daniel and the irrevocable impact of my choices, I also carry the hope that through continued self-forgiveness and growth, I can forge a future defined not solely by my past mistakes, but by the resilience and truth of my own reclaimed identity. I'm not asking for absolution from those I hurt. I am instead seeking the fragile redemption that comes from acknowledging my own humanity. And as I move forward, I vow to honor every facet of my experience. The love that dared to bloom in the darkness, the betrayal that forced me to confront the harsh realities of life, and the unwavering pursuit of truth that has transformed me, piece by piece, into the woman I am today. The question lingers. Was it a mistake, or a necessary transgression that led me to discover a depth of emotion I never knew existed? Perhaps it is both, a paradox in which our biggest failures are inextricably tied to our most profound revelations. And while the path ahead remains uncertain, I choose to walk it with the awareness that every step, no matter how painful, is a vital part of the journey toward understanding who we truly are. In this ongoing quest for redemption, I am learning that sometimes the most difficult choices grant us the greatest insight into the heart's capacity for both love and regret. And so, as I close this chapter with a mixture of sorrow, hope, and a cautious optimism for the future, I leave behind not only a story of betrayal and forbidden love, but also a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. A spirit that, even in the face of moral complexity and shattered ideals, continues to seek meaning and redemption in the aftermath of its own mistakes. Reflection. Looking back, I know I will always harbor the bittersweet memory of how I inadvertently fell for the very person who should have never crossed the boundaries of our sacred vows. And while those days continue to haunt and shape me, they have also taught me that within every moral dilemma lies the opportunity to learn, forgive, and ultimately transform ourselves. This is my truth, a confession steeped in regret and a celebration of the painful yet liberating journey towards self-realization. My heart, fractured as it may be, holds onto a glimmer of hope that someday all the wounds will heal into scars that remind me of the courage it took to embrace the full spectrum of my humanity. The past is unchangeable, but the lessons it taught me guide my steps as I strive for a future where the boundaries between right and wrong become less about judgment and more about the understanding of our shared, imperfect nature. And perhaps, in that future, forgiveness, both for oneself and from those we hurt, might finally come as a quiet, enduring balm for all that has been lost.